Hello, Tony, in England. On a
Hi, how you doing?
Not bad. It's very cold up there, is it?
It's pretty cold, wet, foggy and miserable.
Keep it clean.
Apart from that, what's new?
Well, it's lovely and warm here. Normally we do these things at opposite ends of AM, PM. Normally we're talking to the States, and so we're in here quite early. So I really appreciate you speaking this early in the morning. I know it's very tough.
Yeah, it is early for me, but the reason I'm up, I was up anyway, because I had to go to the airport to pick my son up, who came back from Newcastle.
Oh, okay. Was he on tour, or what's he doing? Because he's a musician too, isn't he?
He's a musician too. Oh, I should send you some of his. He could play. He's just been not discovered, sort of discovered by Mark Works. You remember Mark Works?
Yes.
Well, you do know Mark Works, because he put you on to me, didn't he?
Yes,
That's right.
He's just flipped over Anthony stuff, so we're looking forward to something happening this year with that.
That's great.
But anyway, yeah.
So let's get back to you. Let's get Nick to ask you a question and get you going.
How did you get started in music? Were you singing as a
How
young...
did I get started in music? Well, that was... I don't think we've got enough time to talk about that. But it was a long time ago, right the early 60s. I was at a holiday camp. Ended up singing with somebody. Met up with a couple of blokes from the East End of London. One of them was a certain fellow called Terry Venables.
My son is going to love that connection because he's a big soccer buff.
Seriously, the same Terry Venables. And his mate was singing with a group in Dagenham, and he saw me get up and sing at a bar one night at the Butlins holiday camp, and he said to me, "Why don't you come and sing with us? You know, when you get home, come back to..." Because I lived in East Ham, and he lived in Dagenham, which was like 5 miles away or something. So anyway, that's how I started. I started to get up Sunday lunchtimes at the pub while the singer had a break. After about 3 weeks, somebody came up to me afterwards and said, "Do you want to come and sing with our band tonight?" And that's exactly how it happened. I ended up going to sing with his band. They were called the Castaways. Within about 2 weeks, I'd had this... Because my real name is not Tony Rivers. That's another story. You see, we could go on and on here. It's got an Australian connection. Maybe I should say it, and if you want to use it, you can use it.
Yeah, by all means.
The reason, when I worked at Butlins holiday camp, I was just in the stores or something, writing down, we need another 16 tins of oil or something, all that stuff like that. And one of my friends was a Scotsman called Jock. That's unusual. Jock Smith. Anyway, we went out to a local dance, and he said, "Why don't you go up and sing with this band?" So I went, "Yeah, all right." And he said, "But you can't get up with a name like Thompson." That's my real name. And so we said, "Oh, blimey, what are we going to call me?" And we looked around the dance hall, and on the wall there was a Decca Records chart that said number 6, Moody River by Pat Boone. And I went, he said, "How about that, River, Tony River?" So we ended up with Tony Rivers. The Australian connection is my friend Jock. I never saw him again ever after Butlins, but my name stuck with me. And years later, when I finally got myself a website, the very first message on my guest book was from someone called Jock Smith in Brisbane. And he went, "Tony," he said, "I've just read your website. I can't believe you still remembered me." And it was Jock Smith who gave me my name, and he was the very first man on the message board. So I was stunned.
Now, have you given us...
It made me really realise how the internet has changed things.
Exactly. So have you given us an exclusive tonight? Because I only had a quick look around your website today, but you don't have that you were really Thompson. Was it Thompson?
No, but I can't remember, actually. Maybe.
No, actually, it's on page 1.
Oh, okay, there it is. I stand corrected, yeah.
Tony, there's another Australian connection, because Terry Venables went on to coach our national team.
Terry Venables, the man I met at...
Yeah, he went on to coach Australia. Unfortunately, not to a great deal of success, but...
No, he's got a mixed reputation, Terry Venables, but when I knew him, he was a bit of an East End character, Jack the Lad. I knew him, even... He's not as famous, he wasn't as famous as he became, but I still knew him because he was captain of Chelsea that day, and they played my team, West Ham, at Stamford Bridge, and Chelsea had won 3-2. I still remember, I can't believe I remember this. They won 3-2, and Venables was captain. And blow me down that night, as if it would ever happen today, that a Chelsea footballer or a professional footballer would go to a Butlins holiday camp for his holiday. So it's such a different world. Anyway, Terry was there. He was there for a week. We palled up, had a kickabout, and the story went on. I ended up going back to this. Terry's friend Joe was a singer in a pub in Dagenham. I went there and got up and started singing with them. Ended up, someone saw me singing there, asked me to join their band. and they were called the Cutaways. My name was Tony Rivers, so supposedly. So we suddenly thought, hello, Tony Rivers and the Castaways, because it was perfect at that time. There were all names like that, and Johnny Kidd and the Pirates, you know, Rory Storm and the Hurricanes, all these sort of crazy names.
And England are great for that. England managers come up with great conceptualised names, like all the Alvin Stardusts
well,
and the Gary Glitters.
What about the name they come up with? When the Castaways had been around for a few hundred years, we were trying to get a hit, struggling to get a hit in the bottom end of the chart. Our manager in about 1968 said, why don't we try changing the name? We went, okay, what do you got in mind? He said, Harmony Grass. And we went, what?
I know, it's pretty...
What are you talking about? What does it mean?
Yep.
Harmony Grass. Is it drugs? No, it's just Harmony Grass.
Nashville, isn't it, really? In a way.
Well, we at the time, you got to remember 1968.
No one knew where Nashville
there were
was.
Names like that, and we shouldn't have been surprised. But anyway, we got a great reputation as Tony Rivers and the Castaways. So to change it was quite a big move. But we got a hit record straight away. So the thing about Harmony Grass, we weren't like most of the groups around in the 60s. We were greatly influenced by American groups. Not just American groups, but most of the American groups that we like were vocal, really strong vocally. And we discovered, like Brian Wilson and the Beach Boys in '63, when we heard something like probably Surfing USA, and heard this vocal sound that was like no one else was making. And I realised then I had to find out how you got that sound. And we spent the '60s trying to get a sound like that. And it was only many years later that I actually realised that we could actually get our sound of our own. At the time, I didn't realise that. But it's only when, years later, then a record company in Japan contacted me and wanted to release the Castaways stuff, all the Harmony Grass stuff, because we'd never been on CD till that time. So, you know, you felt like an old ancient thing they found in the desert somewhere. You know, but suddenly when you're on CD, you suddenly feel like, hello, I'm part of today again. Thank God.
Yeah,
I mean, I've been on CD, obviously, with all the artists I work with, but
not
under
your
our
own
own name, because we were from the 60s. That was pre-CD.
Well, I understand, as a fellow musician, I understand what you're saying about all of a sudden discovering that you have a sound. Because
I didn't know at the time.
Well, last week I was in here at the studio, and one of the DJs said to me, it was very flattering, that he heard me playing drums on a guy's record, and he said, I knew that was you. And that's a wonderful thing.
Really? That's great, yeah.
Well, especially for a drummer, but it's a wonderful thing as a musician when you think, gee, after all these years of emulating my idols, now people are listening to me.
Yeah.
And you pass on that baton, which is wonderful.
Well, I totally agree, and it's strange how it happens. We were just making sounds that we'd been making for years, but we decided, mainly me, I decided really, because I realised that I met Carl Wilson from the Beach Boys years ago, but I remember playing him a record of ours in the 60s, mid-60s. I was at their hotel in London, and Carl asked me to bring it up and let him hear it, because we'd done a cover version produced by Andrew Oldham of Girl Don't Tell Me. This is the Castaways. And I was played it to him, and at the end of it he said, hey Tony, that's really cool. He said, you probably do our sound better than anyone else in the world. And I went, wow. And I thought, first of all, well, that's a great compliment. And then when I got home, I suddenly thought, that's not a good career move, really. We got to actually start sounding like us, not the Beach Boys. So after that, we really started concentrating on our own songs, really. Mm-hmm. And I think that when we did Harmony Grass, we got the hit record. It took a long time for the album to be released, so we missed out a bit there, which probably didn't help the sales. But I told all the boys in the band, look, we've got to really, times are changing, we've really got to start doing our own songs. I'd always written B-sides for the record, you know, sometimes co-written, sometimes just on my own, but I've got to be honest, they didn't take much notice of me, so I carried on anyway and wrote about 7 of the songs for the album. And I'll go on, to be honest, it was put together. It was, you know, in those days, you were really until we got the hit record, we had always been at the beck and call of an A&R man. Okay, 3 hours in Abbey Road, you got 3 songs. The first 2 songs will take 2 hours, and you may have half an hour left to do whatever the third song is. And that's how it nearly always was. you got 3 hours in the studio, then you were gone.
So
The next band moved in. Exactly how it was in those days. So when we finally got a hit record, we got a bit more studio time to do things. So we started doing our own songs. But some of the Harmony Grass album was some of the Castaways. When we recorded some of that, we were still the Castaways. But we put it together just because, you know, it's the sort of stuff we wanted to do. It was our own songs. And it's only when it finally came out and I listened to it again, I went, blimey, we did actually have our own sound. It's not trying to sound like Brian Wilson. It's just 4-part harmony, 5 parts occasionally, melodic tunes, you know. That's all we were ever trying to do. I mean, we got a bit close to being a bit cabaret, because at the end of the 60s, you either went to the Windsor Festival or you ended up doing cabaret like Twin Cities, but in England. We came close to that, but we'd always had a great following on the university circuit. So we had a combination of university students loving us and like cabaret audiences loving us. But what we couldn't get was that elusive big hit record and follow up to Harmony Grass. But because of the internet, this Japanese record company decided to release our stuff. Because of that, someone in Los Angeles heard our stuff and started going on about Harmony Grass. And I got a call one day from David Bash in Los Angeles. Do you want to come and play at International Pop Overthrow? I love Harmony Grass. And I went, what? How do you even know about Harmony Grass? It was never even released here originally. But it's because of the internet, people sort of started buying it around the world. You know, I wouldn't say we're going to knock, what's his name, the Crimea River off the top of the charts, but it's just great for someone like us that finished with the album years ago, and now it's unreleased.
Why the following in Japan?
I don't know. I haven't got a clue.
Yeah,
it's a man called Koki Emura, and I wish him all the best because he recently had a really serious car crash that he nearly met his maker that day. I just got a letter one day from the Beach Boys fan club. Said, I've received this letter from someone in Japan who wants to release the Castaways Harmony Grass and anything else you've got. And I didn't take any notice of it for about 6 months. I thought, nah, he's joking, that'd be silly. And my wife said to me, what, have you ever replied to that Japanese man? And I went, no, he can't be serious. He said, I think you should reply to him. So I did. And blow me down, he was a real Harmony Grass Castaways collector. And I'd even heard from record shops in England since that this mysterious Japanese person had been buying up all the Tony Rivers Castaways Harmony Grass records.
He's cornering the market.
You couldn't find one anywhere because he'd bought them all.
Well, the Japanese they've got very eclectic mix. Very
Japan, and they also love harmony,
exactly.
Soft rock. They love harmony stuff. They might also want some weird stuff these days, and I'm sure they do. I've seen some of the film from Japan, and they do look a bit strange, some of them.
Yeah, it's pretty all the soundtracks.
They've always had that love for harmonies and melodic music.
One of the guests we had on the show, Tony, was a guy called Sandy Salisbury, and he was with a fairly obscure band called the Millennium, who were often...
I've heard of Millennium. I've got some of their recordings.
They're often compared to Brian Wilson and all that, and all the stuff there gets a first release in Japan, because they love it.
That's right, yeah. Well, it's exactly the same. I'm sure they've been released on EM at times, same as we have. But the amazing thing is, the bloke who runs this record company, he's about 32. So when I found out, and I asked him, he said, my dad used to have your album when I was younger, and he played it, and I loved it. I've always been a huge believer, and I've always said it. No matter what you do, when you put in your name on a record, it doesn't matter if you're earning nothing or £1,000 for doing that record, or £1 million. When your name goes on it, do the best job you can, because one day someone's going to play that, and they're going to say, oh, who's that doing that? And that's exactly what happened with me when I ended up getting the gig with Cliff Richard. Bruce Welsh phoned me up one day. Now, I don't know if everyone knows Bruce Welsh from the Shadows.
We spoke to John Farrer a couple of weeks ago, Tony.
Oh,
so
really?
There's that connection. Yes.
Yeah.
And I've met Bruce a few times. He's a lovely man, so I know that connection.
Bruce is my mate. He's still my mate after all these years when we first met with Cliff. But he phoned me up and said, I've heard this song you did. You wrote it, didn't you? And I went, yeah. And he said, I love the backing vocals on it. And I said, oh. He said, who is it? And I went, me and a couple of friends. He said, oh, who did the vocal arrangement? I said, well, I did. I always do. And he said, I'd like you to do some stuff with Cliff Richard. And I sort of went, what? Cliff Richard, you got to remember, I know Cliff's quite popular in Australia, and he always has been.
He was just here
and
for
he has been here for years. But at that time, he just released Honky Tonk Angel or something.
Yes, it was from a movie too, wasn't it?
Yeah, and he pulled it. He pulled the record. It only sold about 300. And he was being looked at as a little bit, yesterday's news, He'd lost his... As anyone would be who'd been around for like 15, 18 years at the time. What can you come up with that's new? Well, Bruce managed it. He put Terry Britton, another Australian, English Australian, Alan Tarney.
Another Australian?
Alan Tarney was from Melbourne, yeah. He's a fantastic musician, Alan, as well. I mean, we played in this band. We're in the studio at Abbey Road where the Beatles made all their stuff. We're recording with Terry Britton on guitar, who's great. Alan Tarney on bass, who's great. A fellow called Graham Todd on piano, who's now no longer with us. He was a great piano player. And Clem Catini, who you may have heard of.
A monster studio drummer, isn't he? Very, very.
Oh, he's great. He was on so many things. He was on Move a Little Closer with us. I mean, we played. All our band played on the record, and we had two drummers. Clem doubled our drummer. So, I mean, we've known Clem for years. But that was the lineup, and we did Devil Woman. When that was released, it was like number 4 in America. So you got to remember, we're doing the first session we've ever done with Cliff Richard. We've got 3 songs. That's Devil Woman, Miss Unites, and a song called I Can't Ask for Anything More Than You. And all 3 songs came out and were all hits. They're not massive. Devil Woman was the biggest, but Miss Unites is still the most popular Cliff Richard song that most people vote for ever. And it's just Bruce heard what we'd done on record. So if you say you did a job and you hurried it up, we're not getting paid much for this, let's hurry it up and finish it, you may not be doing yourself any favours. Because I had no idea that when I wrote this song and demoed it, that Bruce Welch would hear it. And because of that, I worked for the next 10, 15 years, and being booked by people to do arrangements. Ended up working with Alan Parsons, Alan Parsons Project, sang on the Year of the Cat album, Steve Harley, Cockney Rebel, and then ended up with Shakin' Stevens making hits with him. So you never know. When you make a record, you've got to make it as good as you can possibly do it. Always been my motto.
Just interjecting there, I mean, well, not interjecting, but following that same thought process, I say the same thing about playing live. A couple of times last year I was thinking of putting a band back together, and it's very hard to get people that will dedicate, especially of our age now. As you become a senior musician, so many guys are off doing a couple of things. I'm sure it will be happening in the UK as well, is you get those musicians that hit 40, 50, and they're out working maybe a couple of different things that they're doing, and that was the frustrating thing for me, is that because every time you walk on stage, and it's not an ego thing, I know you know what I'm saying here, it's just having pride in what you do.
Yeah.
And even if you're working in a little working men's club up in, Dagenham somewhere or whatever, I agree with you, and I think what you're saying about the studio follows for live performance as well.
You just got to do...
Because you don't know who's out there watching. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's right, exactly right. You can never, ever take your foot off the pedal.
Exactly.
You just got to be... But once you've got standards, you apply them anyway. You would apply them automatically. It's just that one of our boys in the vocal group used to... He would go, come on, let's not bother about doing that. And I say, no, do it. If it's an idea, it's worth trying. Get it right. If it doesn't work, fine. But then we'll go home. I think you've got to have that attitude. Many musicians who've worked with me over the years who still come up to me and go, God, you're a hard man to work for.
I know that. I know this very well.
Yeah, you have to do vocals. You have to rehearse a lot. I mean, when we worked with Cliff Richard, for instance, if we were going to do a tour, we would spend the first day at home doing vocals. Because and they'd say, well, why can't you come and rehearse with the band? I don't want to. I want to sit at home with acoustic guitar, you sing that, you sing that, you sing that. When we get there, we'll know it. And we don't have to worry about, can we hear ourselves, give us better monitor.
Yeah.
We've got it. Let us do the way we work best. And I joined Shakin' Stevens after that, and not only does he not want that, he wants you to turn up on the day, knowing it anyway, but they don't want to pay you, they just want you to do it. and then do dance movements as well. We're going, hold it, 1 minute, hold it. You can't do it like this. If you've got to do it properly. But of course, we've been with him so long now. We know every song backwards anyway. So when we rehearse with him, it's not a problem. You know, it's a different approach for working with Cliff.
Tony, I've also got that you sang back up at Live Aid with
that was interesting. That was interesting because I was on tour with Cliff at the time. I was doing a gospel tour, and when I got the call from I got the call from Elton John's office, and I said, "What date?" And I'd been reading about this gig that was coming up, Live Aid, and I'd met Elton, funny enough, in Australia. Several times in Australia whilst on tour with Cliff.
Was he with Bobby?
In New Zealand as well.
Was he with Bobby Rydell?
No, he wasn't. He was on his own. On his own with his band, that is. I've got, a lot of interesting stories I probably couldn't tell you on the air but with Elton, but great days. I mean, I always remember playing tennis with him. The difference was if we went to play tennis or somewhere with Cliff, we'd probably get a cab or a bus. With Elton, when I spoke to Davy Johnson, no, not Davy Johnson, D. Murray.
D. Murray, yeah.
He's also no longer with us. Meeting up with him in a hotel, and he said, "Oh, do you play tennis?" I said, "Yeah, I love tennis." He says, "Well, we're going out tomorrow." Oh, this was in New Zealand before we got to Australia. In New Zealand, he said, "Okay, I'll meet you in the lobby tomorrow." Oh, okay. When I met him in the lobby, like, there's two limos, stretch limos. One, he said, "That one's for Elton, this one's for us." What, we're going to stretch limo? We were like used to catching the bus with Cliff. But got there and it was like, everything laid on. And another great story with Elton in Australia. This was we were in Melbourne, and we'd done our gig, and Elton had been off probably somewhere having an evening out, and he turned up at our dinner after gig dinner at the hotel. And Elton came in. "Oh, guys, how you doing? How was the show? This, that, and the other." You know. "Oh, shall we?" He sat around for a while and said, "Why don't we get a piano and have a sing?" And Cliff said, "Oh, okay, I'll go and see the manager." And he popped off to see the manager. Came back about 2 minutes later and said, "Oh, sorry guys, the manager says the ballroom's closed." And Elton uttered a little expletive and said, "Give me a minute." He went out. A couple of minutes later he came back and said, "Okay, in the ballroom, he's opening it up." He opened the ballroom up. He got 2 drinks trolleys, one with drinks, one with tea and coffee, and we were there till about 5 o'clock in the morning with Elton playing piano. And I always remember him singing like, he said, "I've always wanted to do a funky version of Living Doll." And he does this real weird version of Living Doll, but we just had such a great time with him. You know, that was in Australia.
Another Australian there actually managed you guys there, Tony, according to your website. Robert Stigwood from...
Oh, yeah, he did, yeah. Stigwood, well, I mean, I was a big admirer of the Bee Gees, and mainly because I and the Castaways were signed to Brian Epstein in the 60s. I think we were signed to him twice, and we left him the first time because we felt he was had his hands tied with some other group. Now, what was their name? Oh, yeah, them. And we weren't getting much attention, really, so we split. Anyway, I went back to him a couple of years later. Then he went into business with Robert Stigwood. And I remember being in Robert Stigwood's office. This was probably after Brian had died. And I remember sitting in Robert Stigwood's office, probably 67, and he said, "I want to play you something." And he played me a tape. He said, "What do you think of this?" And he showed me a photo, and it was a photo of the Bee Gees. I think they may have even have been called the Bee Gees then. But he showed me a picture of them and said, "These boys are on the boat over," and he played me a tape recording of probably Sticks and Specks, I suppose, something like that, or a couple of songs. And I said, "Wow, they sound great." And he said, "I'm signing them up when they get here." And it was the blooming Bee Gees, and like probably maybe a year or two later, we were doing the Savile Theatre supporting the Bee Gees, and they were like top of the bill. They had a huge orchestra. They'd already had a couple of number ones, and John Lennon and Paul McCartney are sitting in the audience listening. So I always loved the Bee Gees. We'd often do gigs in London, and Morris would turn up. No, Robin, not Morris. Morris, sorry, the one who died. He would turn up, and he would always come over and say, "How you doing, mate? Great to see you." And he even gave me his address, said, if you come out to Florida, come and see me and come and say hello. I never did, because I never went to Florida, but he was very sad, because I think they are one of the world's pop music's great bands, I think.
He also, Tony, had a reputation for helping Australians coming over as well once they were successful.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we've interviewed a few Aussies sort of going over there who are, it's here, like Steve Kipner, who's a very successful producer in America now. He was
I know that name, yeah.
Tony, can I just take you back a minute here? When you were saying that you were influenced by the harmony groups like the Beach Boys, and I guess it would have been like, who were the influences on the Beach Boys when you go back further into the Four Freshmen, whatever? Now that's sort of...
Four Freshmen, yeah.
Well, that's very unusual, because bands of that ilk, 61, 62, 63, when the Stones were starting out and the Kinks and everything...
They're all blues.
They're all blues. And so you were in a rarity, really, weren't you?
Oh, yeah. I've been asked this question by somebody over here, a journalist who was doing something on us, saying, well, how come when all these other groups were going bluesy and that was all becoming, the thing to be, how come you were a harmony group? And I said, well, because we weren't interested. Neither would we be capable of going, well, we're all good this morning. I never had the slightest interest. I always was mad on harmony anyway. I would listen to a Buddy Holly record, and apart from being blown away by the guitar sound, I would listen to what's going on in the background, think it over, ba-ba-ba, and all these background bits. I don't know why I would do that, but it was automatic to me. I'd listen to Danny and the Juniors, and I'm listening to the harmony, and that's how you're made up. I don't know what gave me that inclination, really, because there's no one in my family before me was musical, apart from my mum, who had a nice voice, but she wasn't in the harmonies, I don't think.
Well, that's a question we normally ask, but obviously, it's a standard thing is to say, where did you get this talent from? And I was, my mum and dad were completely tone deaf, and the thing was, there was no radio playing in our house either that much. So what got me into music, and this is not my interview, but what got me into music was when the Beatles came out here in '64. Yeah. And I wasn't aware of music until I saw this phenomenon. So it was more the phenomenon that got me into music, and then I started to discover it from them.
We actually played with the Beatles in, I know exactly the date, actually, April 21st, 1963. We played at the Pigalle nightclub in London, and we were supporting the Beatles. And we met them, I always remember it, because the Beatles were doing the Wembley Poll Winners concert, it used to be called, at Wembley Arena. They'd just been voted world #1 group. They were #1 with Please Please Me, and we were supporting them, and this was really exciting. Although they'd only had 2 records. They'd only had Love Me Do and Please Please Me, but they were obviously something very special. But when we met them, they were great. Backstage, I said to Ringo, because you got to remember all the bands around then, we'd all been doing Cliff and the Shadows up to then, but now we were all singing Beatles songs. And I said to Ringo, you got a list? I said, do you know what you're going to be doing tonight? And he went, why is that? I said, well, half of our act is Beatles songs. He said, don't matter, just play them. He said, it won't matter. What he meant was it won't matter, because once they get on, everyone will go party anyway.
Were they great live, Tony? How did they...
I'm not kidding. Now, I could easily say and build it all up, but they blew us away. I always remember, me and my wife were standing in the wings. George Harrison was on stage right, so I'm in the right side of the stage in the wings, about two yards away from George, and I always remember him playing, just stayed with me, but they were just great. They sang great. John had a great voice, and George harmonised beautifully, and McCartney had that great voice.
And you would have had no stage monitoring in these days?
No, nothing whatever. And I can't even remember what the PA would have been. Probably dreadful.
Oh, yeah, it would have been like a public address system, literally.
But I just remember us, while we were on, I always remember it's great. While we were on, we could hear applause from the curtain behind us. And it was obviously the Beatles sitting there listening and clapping, which we thought was a nice seal of approval. And after this had gone on for a while, one of our guitar players thought he'd show off. He'd go back and show the audience that the Beatles are sitting there clapping us. And as soon as he did that, I lost them, because the crowd went crazy as soon as they realised the Beatles were in the building. So we lost it after that. We always cursed him for that. But it's nice to have the Beatles seal of approval.
Absolutely. Look,
but they were great live.
Can I digress again? I haven't, as I said, had a good look around your website, but do you have a list of all of the... Do you have like a discography of everyone you've worked with and sung with?
No, I've got a discography of everything we recorded as the Castaways, Harmony Grass. That is one of my next things to do, but quite immodestly, I'll say it will take me a long time, because
you must have sung
during the 70s, 80s period, in through the 90s, we've done so much with different people that it will be very difficult to pin everything down that we did.
You must have
because a lot of the stuff you do never gets anywhere. You know, you're doing a million sessions at that time. Some would get through and sneak into the charts. Others would just be paying the bills. Like those budget albums we used to do through the early 70s, before we started working with Cliff. We were doing those budget albums, Top of the Pops. And like all these years later, the BBC TV did a documentary on the making of them. And I went, what? These were like selling for a 79p or something in Woolworths. So that you're making 12 songs every 6 weeks of the latest pop records. You got a day to do everything, you know. So, and the Mojo covered it. They did a 2-page spread, and I'm going, this is staggering. I can't believe this would. So, what with the Harmony Grass thing and then the Top of the Pops albums, it's quite something to keep up with it all. I mean, I've got a collection of albums that I know I'm on, and I've got about 100 albums that I know that I took part in, you know.
That's not bad, Tony.
Well, it's not bad. Yeah, considering when I joined the Castaways, they were basically an instrumental group. So it didn't look like I was likely to last long if they were playing almost all instrumentals, you know. But anyway, I did my recording test at EMI. We got the deal and got the gig, and that's where I've been ever since, basically.
We've got to wind it up soon, but what are you up to at the moment? Is there a Harmony Grass too?
Well, there was a Harmony Grass reunion at the Cavern last October. That was funny. We did it was the International Pop Overthrow, the music festival from LA. He goes all around the States as well, and he decided to do the Cavern, and he asked me if we'd do it. Because, I mean, I'll just tell you one story. When we first did the IPO in Los Angeles in 2001, Brian Wilson came to see us, and he came to see us particularly because he only turned up for us, and we were on last in the evening. He turned up because my son has recorded, and I say it in all honesty, a great version of Caroline No, Brian's song. He only did it for fun, but I played it to a friend of mine in Los Angeles, who's Brian Wilson's biographer and best friend, a fellow called David Leaf.
Yes, we know David.
And he flipped, and he phoned me. He emailed me about a week later and said, "Guess who just came to dinner? And guess what I played him?" And then another email said, "Guess who really loved it?" And so this was when I'd been out to LA to see Brian Wilson do Pet Sounds at the Hollywood Bowl. That's when I played it to him. And he brought Brian Wilson to see us at the Troubadour, and it was sort of staggering to see my hero sitting there. I thought for the first time ever I'd get nervous, but I didn't.
Did he talk to you after the show or anything like that, Tony?
He talked before the show. I won't tell you what he said. Well, I'll give you a rough idea. I'm walking from the gig because I'd heard that Brian had just arrived and he was at the bar, so I went out to meet him. Just so I'm walking from the hall into the bar, he walked through the door and he went, and my friend's wife was with him and said, "Hey Brian, this is Tony. He's come to see you." And he went, "Hey man, hope you got some blank blank great songs." And I went, "Oh my God, Brian Wilson just said, I hope you got some great songs for me." And you suddenly start questioning every chord you ever wrote.
Exactly.
Because, oh my God, you know, I mean, I've got to say the man is a total genius, and you know, any musician in the world would recognise these chords that Brian Wilson has put together to make records are unlike anybody else.
We were just listening to some pseudo Brian Wilson, and Derek brought in Bell and Sebastian. It's Trevor Horn's, I think, a new project by Trevor Horn, and it's very, very pet soundy sort of.
Oh, I shall have to have a listen to that.
Yeah,
Yes, very interesting.
Bell and Sebastian. Tony, we got to go. We've got
okay, mate.
the barbarians at the gate, and I mean that in the nicest possible way.
Yeah.
Tony, look, thanks very much for taking time to talk with us. We really appreciate it, and getting you up early in the morning.
No problem. This is a rare morning where I actually did get up early because of the airport.
Naz, do you still follow West Ham?
I certainly do.
Because I was
They're not doing too great.
No, I was born in West Ham. I spent the first I spent the first 6 years of my life there, and so I know the area quite well. So it's changed a lot. The house that I was living in, they've unfortunately knocked down. I took my son to see it, and it's not there anymore.
Oh, I tell you, isn't that a blow when they do that?
It is.
I went back to my old house in County Durham where I was born, and it had gone. It's like having your leg torn off.
It is.
An Australian, Stan Lazaridis, plays for West Ham, I think.
Oh, yeah, he did. He now plays for
Birmingham? No.
Birmingham City, that's right.
Oh, look, we'll need a part 2 here, Tony. We'll get into all of the connections.
Well, we'll do it. Tony Rivers. I just want to mention TonyRivers.com, www.TonyRivers.com, and all your stuff's basically available now, isn't it, Tony?
Yes, it's all on CD. I mean, the Castaways era, the Harmony Grass stuff, and all recordings I've done since the 70s and 80s, 90s.
Can our listeners buy through your website, or where do they have to go?
Well, they can get it. There are links to the record companies. RPM is the main source. Yeah, if you go to RPM, if you look at the RPM link on the website, then that will take you to their website, and you'll see all the stuff there, and you just order it.
Okay then, Tony. All the best.
Anyway, great to talk to you boys.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm actually about to move to Spain. I'm just getting a bit jealous of all you people with all this lovely sunshine.
Oh, look, too much of a good thing today, Tony.
I found a bit of Spain that looks like California, looks like LA. It's got orange groves, mountains, and I've got a nice beach address.
Oh, wonderful. Now we're celebrating.
So I'm starting to get a bit Australian here.
Okay then, Tony. Thanks very much.
Okay, mate.
Bye.
See you later.
Bye, Tony.